About 5 months ago, I was staring at a $30,000 repair bill for my truck. The diesel motor suffered a catastrophic failure. A new motor is about $30,000. A new similar truck, $100,000 to $105,000. That's a lot to think about. And in trying to figure out what to do, I changed the way I make decisions forever and uncovered a massive legal time bomb thousands of people are sitting on and don't even realize it. When I went to ChatGPT, I said, act like Ray Dalio and give me some advice. I've read Ray's book, Principles. It doesn't sound anything like Dalio. When I went to Claude, I asked it to act like Dave Ramsey and do the same thing, but it didn't sound like Dave Ramsey. Other than yelling at me, which is exactly what you'd expect, it didn't sound like Dave Ramsey. So a couple things became obvious. One, these AI advisors are not giving great advice. And two, and this should terrify anybody that's using celebrity names in their advisors online, is that not only are they ineffective, they're legally radioactive. George Carlin's estate proved that. I think last year they sued, and others have sued, and more are going to get sued. And even Congress is taking action because right of publicity is a real thing. I even saw a guy in the last few days on YouTube take Alex Hormozy's books and claim to have repackaged them and make them available for free. That's illegal. And he might as well scream, hey, come sue me. I've done something different. I spent about 5 months, a lot of time and a lot of research building an advisor framework that solves problems through sequential expert analysis and debate. It's legally bulletproof, and I think it's 10 times more effective. I'm going to give it to you for free and show you how to customize it for your model and your preferences. Let me show you what I built. I'm going to start with a really simple prompt that someone might ask if they were facing this situation and they weren't going to give the AI very much to go on. Now, in this case, this is my custom setup. You're going to see thinking in here that is specific to me. I've asked Claude to disregard the framework. You're going to see it activate here, but it won't actually run it. I'll show you that in a minute. So you're getting pretty basic advice from Claude. And it's kind of asking some questions. This isn't excellent. We are using thinking mode and Opus 4.1. So we've got all of the most advanced thinking on. So this is as good as it gets. And the recommendation seems extremely high, even for a complete engine replacement. Strongly suggest getting a second opinion before going forward. That makes sense. Real quick, let's jump over to this one and ask what Dave Ramsey would do. I have all this in an auto expander so you don't have to watch me type. And same thing, Opus 4.1, extended thinking. Let's see what Dave Ramsey says. This isn't Dave Ramsey, for the record. Don't sue me, Dave. I'm trying to show why we shouldn't use celebrities. Again, it's going to show some thinking. It's going to take a little longer to think because it's trying to channel this celebrity. And actually, we can take a look at the logic. You can see it's actually going through kind of a thoughtful process. But it says right here, I'll give you Dave Ramsey's perspective on this truck situation, along with 3 main options you're facing. This is why it's a problem. This isn't actually Dave Ramsey's perspective. It has nothing to do with Ramsey. And so, again, this is what happened to me before. Are you kidding me? It's just going to kind of chew your ass a little bit. So here's what Dave would likely say about each option. It's just trying to channel him. And it goes through and gives a few things. Bottom line, stop trying to justify a terrible decision. Don't fix it. Don't buy new. Buy a reliable used truck. Not bad advice, actually, for a lot of situations. It doesn't fit my situation, but that's the advice you get. Not great. So just to be clear, this isn't Dave Ramsey. Sounds like him, but it's not him. This only sounds like him because Dave's kind of rough around the edges when he's talking to folks, and he's frugal and tells people to quit wasting money. And that's what this is doing. Not terrible idea, but it's just not Dave's advice. So if you were to actually sit down with Dave privately and he was going to give you one-on-one advice, this isn't how it would go. I'm sure of it. So over here we have another project, and in this project it's set up differently. I have my master prompt over here in the instructions, and I've got 3 documents. So one is this master prompt. The other one is the personal finance board. So this is who's on the advisory board. And they're all fictitious people based on archetypes that are based on multiple proven methodologies and advisor types that go in to make a single advisor archetype. The full profile for each archetype, how they think, the methodologies, all that other stuff is stored in this universal directory, and all of the boards put into this universal directory. So what happens here is the process when I put the prompt in is it will read my prompt, see how I want to receive information, what my preferences are. And if it needs to go to a personal finance board, it'll look at this, see how to activate it, pull those profiles and methodologies from this archetype. This can all be stored anywhere you want. Could be in Google Drive, could be wherever you want. So in here, we're still using Opus 4.1 in the thinking mode. And I'm going to put in a better prompt, more context, which is something we all should be doing. It's going to give it some background, warranty stuff, that kind of thing. We'll run, see what happens. What I want you to notice here is the thought process. It's a critical part of this that really separates it from maybe what you've seen in the past. And the first thing you should notice is that this involves a $30,000 financial decision and triggers the financial advisory board. So we have an automatic trigger in the master prompt that says if we're making a decision over $10,000, just automatically pull this board up. These kinds of automatic triggers can be applied to any group you want. So if you're baking chocolate chip cookies and you've never done it before and you've got a chocolate chip trigger in your master prompt, it will bring that up when it sees that. All of that stuff is decided by you. You decide what matters for each board, which means for emotional support or anything. If you're typing away into Claude or GPT-5 or whatever your favorite model is, when it sees that, it'll automatically bring it up. So you don't have to remember the language to activate your personal finance board or whichever board you're using. So it's identified the situation as standard. This is important because the standard sequence, remember, the advisors speak in sequence based on their expertise. So we've set it up so that each advisor speaks based on what's most important in that decision-making framework. And you don't have to decide this. The establishment of this board, which is another prompt system, takes care of it for you. It's absolutely painless, fast, easy. You have to change one word. So it's saying we're going to use Clearwater, Compass, Riverstone, Sterling, and Fortress in that order. And they're going to acknowledge each other in that order, which is pretty amazing, I think. Then it's going to provide a synthesis and a recommendation. It's activated. It's giving you the situation type, standard. If this was a crisis, this sequence is different. If this was an opportunity, say an inheritance, this would be different. We're not going to read all of them, but Clearwater, he makes an assessment, financial. Compass, she acknowledges David. She's acknowledging the previous advisor by name. You may not have seen that before. I certainly haven't seen that in any other advisor framework. And it gets better. Riverstone acknowledges both of them and then makes his decision based on what they've said. Same thing with Sterling. She goes and acknowledges the 3 people before her, and Fortress acknowledges the 4 people before him. They're all considering everybody's opinion. This continues if they don't agree, which doesn't happen very often, but if they don't agree, they'll just keep doing this until they can reach a point of synthesis, which is when 3 of them agree. So they have a point of consensus to repair. They have points of contention. You know, is there something we don't agree on? Insights, some other stuff you need to consider. And their final recommendation, fix the truck. But you're not just being told fix the truck. You're being told the good, the bad, things to consider. And then it goes on further to kind of give the rationale. Why did we come to that decision? That's the rationale. That's important to know. And an alternative. What if you don't want to do it? What if you can't do it? Okay, fine. Here's another option. And then next actions. How do you go about doing this? So it's not just telling you fix it. What else should you do? Well, we should get an assessment. We should get a warranty. We should find out about tax deductions. Backup transportation. Confidence level high, 4 or 5 experts align on repair. If they didn't, say only 2 did, they would continue until they came up with a recommendation. So key descent, only pursue if you have backup transportation and can handle 2 to 3 weeks annual downtime without major disruption. This stuff is so good that that's exactly what it took for time. About 2.5 weeks. Everything else is spot on. So this advisory board worked together. They didn't just agree, and they argued a little bit, which gave you a really well-rounded decision. And this mirrored real life exactly. Next, I'm going to show you how to create the board. And that's a pretty amazing process. Very simple. It's going to take a minute, but very simple. I think you're going to like it. Okay, so we're going to break down how to create an advisory board that won't get you sued, and will give you 5 expert archetypes to help you make better decisions. It starts with 5.5 prompts. 5.5 seems weird, I know, but mistakes were made during the construction of the framework. So at phase 3, I realized something else needed to be added in. So threw it in at 3.5. It was a lot better than reworking the entire thing. And it actually works pretty well. So phase 1 is the only place where you need to make a change. Everything else builds on the one before it. Right at the beginning of this prompt, there is a section right here that you need to change. Insert target domain. So this is what Claude is going to use to analyze everything that goes into this domain and to help start building the experts. We'll pick something a little more lighthearted than catastrophic engine failure. I'm going to say baking. We'll see. Actually, I've never run this either. I have no idea what's going to happen here, so we'll get to watch this together. But I'm going to use Opus. Opus is particularly good for the creative work. You don't have to use Opus. You can use whatever you want. It'll still be fantastic. But I like extended thinking and Opus. Anytime we have to do creative work, that's my go-to. We'll run it, and this will take a minute. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come right back and show you what Claude has come up with. Okay, so Claude is getting close to finishing this. The baking domain advisory board. I'll be interested to see how this goes. Core knowledge, chemical reactions, ingredients, technique mastery, flavor architecture, sensory design, production systems, equipment optimization, market positioning. I think Claude's going for baking business. So we have archetypes first. So what is just not the specific person, but the archetype? What would be your ideal person? What do they have to know and do? And we won't read it all, but each one is going to get a breakdown that's similar, which is the knowledge, methodologies, value, role. This one's challenges traditional based assumptions with empirical evidence, validates or debunks grandmother's wisdom. I don't know if that sounds like a good idea to me. Grandma probably knew what she was doing, but it's where Claude's going. So the artisan, the flavor architect, the production engineer, market strategist, Claude has broken down this stuff and determined that 94% domain coverage for baking. Productive tension. So the alchemist is going to have something going on with the craft master and the engineer and the craft master. Again, when you build yours, go through this. It's fascinating. To me, it's fascinating. Blind spots. So it's going to find the blind spots. Where is this board maybe likely to miss something? So international shipping, some pretty specific stuff, specialized dietary restrictions. And as a quick side note, this is where you can bring in extra experts. So once you have several boards built, you might bring in somebody who's an expert in dietary restrictions from your health and wellness board to consult on something from your baking board. So they come up with a recipe and you want to make sure that it complies with a gluten-free methodology. Fine. Or maybe you need to get the caloric count where it should be for a specific person. You can bring in an expert, like a subject matter expert from one of your other profiles. This will also include escalation triggers. So just like everything else, again, this is pretty lighthearted, but you can set it up so that if your board or you make health claims requiring something else, it will automatically trigger your baking board. As odd as that sounds, it will. If you say you're going to buy a big fancy oven or you're asked about that, it might say, well, hold on. Let's talk to the board about that. So we're going to run phase 2 and don't do anything. This just runs. You just press enter and let it go. And when Claude gets done, we'll take a look at that. Okay, so Claude is done running the practitioner mapping. And what happens here is Claude goes out and finds real people and maps out their learning, what made them, what is their methodology. And so I'm not a baker, so I don't know these people, Harold McGee and Peter Reinhardt and whoever. And the archetype that they would fit, it lays all of that out and just analyzes how they acquired their information, what it is that makes Francisco amazing. So not Francisco's exact methodology or his recipes or anything, and it makes no claims to know how that person would think, respond, or bake anything. But it goes through and finds these people, identifies the synergy between them, the coverage, what do they provide for coverage in this domain, different types of methodologies, and then we get to run phase 3. And again, don't touch anything. We'll run this one and then take a look at Claude's output when it finishes. Okay, I think Claude is getting close to being finished here. It has extracted frameworks and learning and styles from all of these experts and broken them down by philosophy, frameworks, questions that would be asked, decision-making criteria, red flags, and communication styles, that kind of stuff. And it's done it for 15 experts. This is a lot of information. There is absolutely no way we can go through all of this. Again, when you run your own prompt, I would encourage you to do that. You're going to learn a lot. This kind of research would take, I have no idea how long. I mean, I would imagine weeks. It's an intense amount of effort that really can only be done by an AI at this point. So we've created these 15 frameworks, or profiles, excuse me. We've created 15 profiles. There aren't any full archetypes yet. We're just gathering information, and a lot of it, as you can see. In fact, I thought Claude was finished, but apparently not. We're still running. There we are. We're finished. Okay, so now we come to phase 3.5. And I have these programmed in. I would encourage everybody doing this, if you have an auto text expander, to do that. You can copy and paste. That's pretty easy too. But I create enough of these boards that it just makes it a lot faster. So we'll run phase 3.5 and come right back and take a look at that. Okay, Claude is getting close to finishing these profiles, but I want to make a couple of points. One is, I love looking at the thought process. If you are in the model of your choice and you have the option of looking at this stuff, it's pretty interesting, I think. So we're now creating the 5 archetypes. And it takes the 2 to 3 experts that we identified before, and it also gives them professional names. So they seem like real people, but they're not. It's fictitious. And we build our own comprehensive framework that is the best of what the expertise is that we identified earlier. So this is actually building a new comprehensive framework. And we're making sure right here, this is really important, that we have legal distinctiveness from individuals. So we don't want to copy people. We're trying to learn from people. We're trying to learn from the world and the knowledge that came before us, but we are not copying experts. So it's double checking for all this, and you can see that in the prompts when you run them. And then it's also checking to make sure that our previous experts in the directory, we're not recreating those names, because it gets kind of annoying and everybody goes into the same directory, so we'd have some conflicts. And it came up with new names for these people. It doesn't show it here, but it did, and you'll see it here in a second. So let's look at the first one. This archetype is the Senior Baking Science Consultant, Dr. Marcus Whitfield. Tells you where the expertise came from, core methodologies, enhanced with academic chemistry validation, a couple other things. Again, we're not going to read all this. There's just too much here. But it'll go through this new complete framework that we've made up and a process. And if you look at this, I mean, this is incredibly detailed baking information just to show that you can do this for anything. Key questions. What's happening at the molecular level? Ideal temperature curve for fermentation. I mean, I would have never thought about this stuff. I'm not a baker, but anyways, so we're not going to go through this, but red flags, it takes it just as seriously for this domain as it does for financial analysis or health and wellness. So I did it for everybody, got all the archetypes made. We'll put in phase 4 and run it and come back in a second to see what we have. Okay, I think Claude is probably getting close here before we go into what the 5 archetypes look like as a board. A couple things to make it clear that we're adding some extra value here is in the prompt, you'll see this. There is an advantage validation component. We are taking some steps to make sure that these archetypes work better than single expert boards. By single expert board, I mean boards that are comprised of a single personality instead of composite archetypes. Now, in my experience, I have no way of making sure that that domain decision coverage is 97.5%, but it's been asked to make an assessment, and that's what it is. Is that accurate? I'm not sure. It's pretty darn good. I know that. So this is telling you how your board is set up, where your coverage is. Again, we cannot go through all this other stuff, where the remaining gaps are, consultation triggers, tension mapping, Whitfield versus Marchetti, Blackwood and Brenwald, art and efficiency, Caldwell and Brenwald, growth and quality. Again, doesn't matter how serious or unserious the board is, and I know for some people baking is very serious. I love baked goods, so I agree. But it did that whole phase. Yeah, it's amazing here if you look at this. Decision scenario testing. I mean, I'm looking at this for the first time too, so this is kind of amazing to me. Fermentation chemistry from Whitfield for, these are sample scenarios, flavor profiles, production requirements. There's another scenario, quality consistency crisis. I mean, they're just remarkable boards. They cover everything. It covers everything. It's really, really difficult to stump this board, this type of board. So let's get to 5. Well, hold on a second. Actually, I want to talk to you about board strengths: integration depth, coverage, conflict, synthesis, capability. These are all critical parts of any real-world board. And then the activation sequence. I don't know what the baking crisis would be, but it created one. It's probably in here somewhere. I'm sure they've identified what a baking crisis is. Innovation projects, scale decisions. But you'll notice this is different a little bit than the truck scenario. In the truck scenario, activation sequences were based on crisis, but there wasn't an innovation and there wasn't a scale. So it recognizes this as a different domain and that there will be different scenarios. So it's a very intelligent system. And just like before, there is a sequence to each one of these. And that's because they build upon each other. Okay, so let's do phase 5. We're getting real close. Again, don't touch anything, just run the prompt. And we'll finish up here in a minute once this prompt is done. Okay, Claude is pretty close to finishing. And let's take a look at what our board activation document looks like. So this is the document that will be referenced by your model of choice when the archetypes are needed, when your board is activated, whether it's manually by you or automatic through a trigger that you've set up in your prompt. And again, can't read the whole thing, but we'll go over the basics. It covers domain, how much of the coverage it provides, composite advantages, methodologies, use cases. A lot of this is for your information, so you know where there are limitations, when you may need to bring in another expert, another subject matter expert. And as you create more archetype-based boards, you're building a huge directory of expert reasoning. It's not even that you're building personalities as much as we all know, everybody should know, that the AI needs a role. And that's what you're doing, building very complex roles that you can activate in very specific situations when you want to. This kind of system means that that whole portion of giving it a role of you are, act as, you've just created it. So now you can just go to these boards and or bring people in when you need to and ask them the question. And it works phenomenally well because you've already taken the time to put your model of choice in its role, in its persona, which is really well researched. But let's look at a couple things real quick. So you've got your limitations, and Dr. Marcus Whitfield, fabricated, made up, senior baking scientist, basically, and consultant. His methodology conflicts with Marchetti on intuition, Isabella. It goes through and lists each one of these people with kind of an overview of them. And then down here, activation sequences. Again, a lot of this is for you. If you want to just ask your board, you can say activate baking advisory board for sourdough recipe, whatever you're working on. And so for the standard sequence, it'll tell you who answers first and also why. Archetypes acknowledge previous speakers. They create the dialogue. Why do they activate in a certain order? And it tells you Caldwell for market context, Blackwood for vision, Whitfield for scientific feasibility, Marchetti, craft execution, and Brenwald synthesizes an operation plan. But in different situations, it's going to lead with different experts and they're going to build on each other, and it tells you why. So sequential analysis protocol, again, we're not going to read the whole thing. Round 1, round 2, round 3, and they're going to continue until they reach a consensus or disagreement. Anyway, we'll keep going here. I'm not going to read to you everything that it does, but there's a lot here. This is your document. This ends up becoming the document. And we may do another video on exactly how to format these documents. I think we'll probably need to. But for now, that's how these boards are built. In the future, we're going to do a lot more research on this. We're going to keep expanding this and improving it. I hope you do too. If you find something out and you have a suggestion, let me know. If you can break this, do. I'm sure you can. It's probably not perfect. But I've been using this extensively for months now, and it is phenomenal. It's great advice. And when the idea strikes that geez, I wish I could ask this group of experts a question, just go through it. Take 10 or 15 minutes. It takes a minute to run. And run this through the model of your choice, make a board, and start asking it questions. I think you'll be really, really pleased with the results. So that's how we make a board. Let me know if you have any questions.